They tell us the Inquisition is humanity's shield, that in its shadowed vigilance lies our only hope. But what they never say is that every shield casts a longer shadow than the blade it stops. Across the Imperium's ailing heart, in worlds where the light of the astronomican trembles through polluted skies, the Inquisition moves unseen, 1,000 eyes behind 1,000 masks. There is no single form it takes, only purpose, only necessity, only fear. To serve the Inquisition is to be consumed by it. There are no medals, no honors, no songs for the faithful. There is only the slow erasure of the self, the steady exchange of mercy for suspicion, of conscience for duty, of flesh for the machinery of paranoia. It is a service from which none return unchanged, and those who do return rarely remember what parts of them were sacrificed in the name of purity. If you would look upon the Inquisition not as myth, but as wound, not as savior, but as mirror, then walk with me. Like, share, and stay within the light, for what follows are truths whispered only in the quiet between screams. The galaxy will not thank you for listening, but the Emperor demands you. Understand, they say the Inquisition began with a whisper, and not a proclamation, not a decree, but a word spoken in a dying man's chamber as the galaxy burned around him. The Emperor's body, broken and immobile upon the golden throne, had not yet cooled from the fires of the Horus heresy when Malcador the Sigillite gathered those who would become the first Inquisitors. Their oaths were taken in silence. Their existence was buried beneath a mountain of secrecy so deep that even history itself has forgotten the faces of those who stood in that room. Yet every act of the Inquisition since has been a shadow cast by that moment, a quiet realization that the Imperium could never again afford the luxury of trust. No edict was issued to announce their founding. No army saluted their creation. The Inquisition was not born in glory but in fear. The fear that what had nearly destroyed mankind could rise again, not from the stars, but from within. For the heresy had revealed the truth that haunts humanity still, that faith can be turned, that loyalty can rot, that even the Emperor's most beloved son can become the architect of apocalypse. From that realization came the creed that would define 10,000 years of suffering, that ignorance is safety, and suspicion is salvation. Thus was born the organization that would police not merely the body of mankind, but its very soul. To serve the Inquisition is to serve the Emperor without question, but also without acknowledgement. Those who are chosen or taken are given no promise of return. They do not wear the imperial aquila upon their armor in open pride, but beneath layers of secrecy, stitched into the lining where only the faithful may see. Their existence is a paradox, sanctioned by the Emperor, yet beyond the reach of any authority save his will. Even the high lords of Terra bow when an Inquisitor enters the chamber, though none dare meet their eyes for long. To speak the word Inquisition aloud in any official record is itself a risk, for the true power of fear lies not in presence but in uncertainty. In the depths of Terra, where light struggles to breathe through the smog of a billion manufactorums, the Inquisition's archives lie buried beneath the Basilica of St. Drusus. The corridors are choked with incense and dust, their walls etched with the names of those who have been erased from history, servants whose deeds were too vital, too blasphemous, or too damning to survive the telling. I once saw one of those archives opened, only once, for it is forbidden even to know the path to its doors. The seals were broken by a robed adept whose voice trembled as he chanted the invocation of permission. Inside, the air was still and heavy, the weight of centuries pressing upon my lungs. The shelves were filled not with books, but with data slates sealed in wax and bone, each one carved with a single sigil, the letter I crowned with flame. It is said that within those tablets lie the orders that have ended worlds. The first lesson taught to any who serve the Inquisition is simple. There is no such thing as innocence, only varying degrees of guilt. It is not cynicism that births this doctrine, but experience. The galaxy is too vast, its horrors too deep for any soul to remain untouched. Mutation hides beneath flesh. Heresy festers behind prayer. Corruption seeps even through the walls of faith. The Inquisitor's task is not to save mankind, for mankind cannot be saved, but to delay its damnation. Long enough for the, Emperor's light to burn one more day. Every execution, every purge, every exterminatus is a form of worship, a sacrifice offered upon the altar of survival. It is difficult for the common citizen of the Imperium to imagine such lives. The administratum clerk who spends his decades copying the same decree, in the same flickering light, could never fathom the loneliness of an inquisitor who must order the death of an entire world to extinguish a single daemon's whisper. The guardsman who dies believing, his courage preserved. The Imperium would collapse in despair if he knew how little his valor mattered to those who decide his fate. And yet, it is these very illusions that the Inquisition must protect. For hope, even false hope, is the mortar that keeps humanity's crumbling walls from collapse. I once served as an observer during the cleansing of a Schola Progenium on Varist Prime. The children there had been trained in the ways of discipline, purity, and faith, or so we thought. But beneath their hymns and daily prayers, a corruption had taken root, spreading through the dreams of the youngest. The Inquisitor who led the operation, Lord Arcton Val, stood before the assembly of the faithful and spoke but 3 words. Ignite the chapel. He did not shout. He did not rage. He spoke with the calm of inevitability. And in that calm, I saw the truth of what it means to serve. The flames rose within moments, consuming the stained glass, devouring the icons of saints. The children screamed, and still the hymns continued until the roof caved in. Later, when I asked Val if the heresy had truly been confirmed, he answered, "It will not matter now." That is the essence of the Inquisition's mercy, to destroy before doubt can bloom, to silence before corruption can speak. Every fire lit in the Emperor's name burns as both warning and confession. To question its necessity is itself a heresy. And yet I could not help but wonder, as the smoke choked the skies and the ashes drifted like gray snow across the ruins, whether the Emperor truly demanded such obedience, or whether obedience itself had become the Emperor. Those who walk this path cannot afford such doubts for long. They are buried beneath the weight of the title they carry, for the word Inquisitor does not merely describe a role, it consumes the soul. Within each of them, there is a voice that begins as duty and ends as hunger, a need to know, to uncover, to root out and destroy. It is a hunger that grows the longer they serve, until the difference between vigilance and obsession blurs into nothing. To be an Inquisitor is to become the embodiment of fear, both for others and for oneself. For when all the heretics are gone, when all the witches are ash, one must look inward, and then there is always more to burn. The Inquisition was never meant to be seen. It was designed to haunt, to linger at the edges of understanding, like a shadow that moves just before the torchlight reaches it. That invisibility is its strength. An Inquisitor's greatest weapon is not the bolt pistol nor the blade, nor even the authority to command an army. It is doubt. Doubt is the knife that cuts deeper than any steel, the silent whisper that makes even the most faithful glance sideways at their brother's prayer. Entire sectors have been purged by rumor alone, whole cults eradicated before they ever took form, all because one voice asked, "What if?" And yet there are moments when the Inquisition must step into the light, if only to remind the Imperium that the shadow is real. I witnessed such a moment, once on the hive world of Arkellis. The city was a labyrinth of rusted cathedrals and manufactorums, its people long resigned to the soot that clung to their lungs like sin. A new sect had arisen there, one that preached absolution through labor, claiming that the Emperor's true light shone brightest upon those who worked until their flesh failed. It spread quickly, faster than the arbits could track, and the hive's upper tiers filled with chants that sounded dangerously close to worshipping exhaustion itself. When Inquisitor Serayan arrived, there was no proclamation, no banners, no ceremony. His ship descended in silence, its hull blacker than the void it came from. The manufactorum bells fell quiet. The crowds gathered in the streets, whispering prayers that felt like confessions. I remember the hiss of steam from the landing gear, the metallic groan as the ramp descended, and the sound of armored boots striking the ground with deliberate finality. Saren did not wear the robes of a priest or the gilded armor of a lord. He was dressed in dark leathers scarred by use, his rosette gleaming faintly at his throat, a single symbol of absolute authority. He spoke only once to the crowd, his voice distorted through the vox grill of his rebreather. "You have forgotten that salvation is not earned." And then he raised his hand. What followed was not slaughter, not at first. It was silence, pure, terrible silence, the kind that swallows breath. The air thickened with psychic weight as his acolytes moved among the faithful, marking them one by one. Some were taken, most were not seen again. The manufactorums burned for 3 days. When the smoke cleared, Arkellis For's skies were empty. Its people returned to work without song. And above the gates of its central cathedral, someone had carved a single phrase into the stone: "Faith does not tire." To the common man, such acts are cruelty. To the Inquisitor, they are liturgy. Every purge, every execution, every silence imposed upon the weak is an act of preservation. The galaxy itself conspires to destroy mankind. And in that vast conspiracy, compassion is a luxury no longer afforded. The Ordos know this truth well. The Ordo Hereticus hunts the unfaithful, the Ordo Xenos the alien, and the Ordo Malleus the demonic, but all three share the same understanding. Survival requires the destruction of innocence. They do not call it evil. They call it equilibrium. The first time I stood before an Ordo Malleus interrogator, I thought myself prepared. I had read the scriptures, memorized the catechisms, practiced the rites of truth. None of it mattered. His chamber was cold, lit by the faint pulse of stasis lamps. Chains hung from the ceiling like a forest of iron vines. I could hear the wet sound of distant machinery, the rhythm of pumps and gears that might have been the beating of a heart. He did not ask me my name. He did not accuse me. He simply stared through the lenses of his mask, and I understood then that the purpose of the Inquisition was not to extract confession. It was to impose it. The guilt was assumed. The only question was how much of it would be left when they were done carving it away. For those who serve, there is a hierarchy of sacrifice. The lowest give their lives, the higher give their minds, the highest give their names. To ascend within the Inquisition is to shed the self in layers. An acolyte becomes a shadow becomes a voice becomes silence. Many Inquisitors forget their own faces after centuries of work, their features worn away by time and sanctioned augmentation. They live within their armor, their flesh a mere vessel for vigilance. Their bodies break, their eyes burn. Their voices fade, but their will remains, bound to the task like iron to magnet, and still they are feared even among their own kind. The Adeptus Mechanicus calls them unpredictable. The Astra Militarum calls them necessary. The Ecclesiarchy calls them holy, but none truly understands them. An Inquisitor is not a man or woman in service to the Imperium. They are the Imperium, distilled, purified, stripped of all hesitation. They are what remains when belief burns away every other part of the soul. Once, long ago, I asked my master why he continued to serve when every mission brought more horror, when every victory reeked of ash. He paused as if searching for words not yet spoken in any human tongue. "Because the Emperor does not rest," he said finally, "and neither can we." It was not faith I heard in his voice that day, nor reverence. It was exhaustion, the kind that seeps into the bones of gods and men alike, the kind that knows mercy would be easier, but that mercy has no place in this world. There are moments when even the most hardened agents of the Inquisition feel the weight of what they've become. It does not strike like a blade. It seeps slow and invisible into the crevices of conviction. You begin by killing because you must. Later you kill because the calculus of survival demands it. And one day, without noticing, you find yourself killing because the silence that follows feels cleaner than the noise of mercy. That is the first sign of the Inquisitor's descent, the slow erosion of the line between duty and desire.